Hi, this is Hector Nunez again, and you are viewing the fourth and final installment of my four-part series on APA formatting in Microsoft Word. This last piece is really to cover some basic citation rules. It's not going to cover all of them. I have to defer in this instance to the APA manual, just because if we were to cover every possibility, this video would be a lot longer than what it currently is. Let's scroll down into a paper that we've been working on. So it's nothing really with the title page that we'll have to worry about. In the abstract, as I mentioned in a previous video, I wouldn't expect any in-text citations or direct quotes in here, seeing as this is an executive summary. This should be something that's written in the third person, active voice, conveying what the reader is about to look at, what some of the findings are, what some of the conclusions are, so on and so forth. As I get into the body of the paper, however, I should start seeing in-text citations. Rule of thumb for APA, or actually an actual solid rule in APA, is that if it has an in-text citation, it has to be listed in the references page, and vice versa. So I should not have anything on the references page that is not cited in text, or vice versa. And cited in text, I'm talking about these parenthetical citations. Let's go down to the reference list right quick. Or I should say real quick, forgive my English. All right, so I'm on the references page. You'll notice that references is center of the title, and I have a couple of references listed. I have a Rickover reference, and I have a Smith and Doe reference, both of them from 2018. The year is important. Technological advancements are coming at the speed of light. Things change so quickly that if I saw something on a piece of technology that was 6, 7, 8 years old, I don't know how much confidence I would have on that particular piece of technology. Notice that the title of a journal article, at least, is written in sentence case. So the main title and subtitle only have the first word capitalized. Everything else is in lowercase, unless you get into proper nouns. So, for example, here you have Jimmy Carter. We know that's former president of the United States, so you're going to have that capitalized. The same would go for a country. If the United States was in here, again, you would write the United States in all caps, Europe for continents, so on and so forth. Then your journal title and your volume are going to be italicized. In parentheses, not italicized is going to be your issue. That's followed by your page number, or your page range, I should say. So we know that in this particular journal, the first part of the journal, the first 10 pages, were Rickover's, was this article by Rickover. Now, this doesn't mean that every journal article is going to start with the number 1, because a journal may be a few hundred pages long. So for instance, when I go to my next one, I have Smith and Doe, and I have that citation, but if I take a look at the page range here, it's 101 to 111. Where I retrieve my source is important. I'm either going to have a DOI number, or I'm going to have a URL. If I have a URL right after the page number, I'm going to have a period. It's going to say retrieved from, and then I'm going to put down my URL, or my website. And this will tell me that if I go to this website, I will find this article from this journal. And then if it's a direct quote, you'll include a page number in the citation so that I know where to find it. And that's really how we attribute content. And I'll go over that here in a second. If I don't have the only time I won't use a URL here is, one, if it's not something that's an electronic resource. In other words, if it's a resource that I have in hand, or if it has a DOI number. So if it has a DOI number, so this basically is a specific number that will, a registry number of sorts, that I can go in there and I can find out what journal we're talking about just with that DOI number. Then you don't need this retrieve from statement at the end of the citation. Notice that we're using an ampersand, and that in here you do use first, middle initials. That's completely acceptable. And that's pretty much it, using a hanging indent 0.5 inches. Take a look at the APA manual. Once you start getting up to so many numbers of authors, then there's different rules that come into play. In the body of the paper, if you have 3 or more authors, the first time you cite the authors, you'll use all their last names. However, subsequent citations of those authors will be followed by the et al. Type phrase. Just understand that whenever if this was, let's say, Smith, Jones, and Doe, and you said it at the first time, and the next time it's going to be Smith et al., just remember that you're speaking in plurality, not a singular. So that's a common mistake when it comes to citations. So let's go back into the body of the paper. And again, reminder, we're speaking in active voice. In other words, something did not happen to something, rather something caused something to occur. So we're speaking actively, we're speaking in the third person, so I shouldn't see any I's or we's or you's, nothing like that. If I'm using a direct quote, I would not expect to see too many of these. Make sure that it's less than 40 words if you're going to include it in your paragraph. If I have a direct quote, it should absolutely have quotation marks around it. The last punctuation mark, so for example here, it looks like we have 2 sentences. The last punctuation mark should be right after the in-text citation, not before it. So that's a common mistake. And here we have Smith and Doe, 2018. And if you remember from the references, they were in the 100s. So on page 103 is where I find that. Now let's say that I found this on a website or a web periodical. It's reputable, but it does not have page numbers. Then in that instance, I would use a paragraph number on that page. So it may be Smith and Doe 2018 paragraph 3, and then I could go down to the bottom, find the URL, go to the page, look at the third paragraph, and then I can find this citation. And that's how we do proper attribution to make sure that we're not accidentally plagiarizing, or so that it's not misconstrued as plagiarism. And I understand that a lot of these things that happen, these similarities, are unintentional. But nonetheless, it's something that we have to be very wary about because it is intellectual property that we're dealing with. And as such, we need to make sure that we attribute the work correctly. What I would rather see instead of direct quotes is something along these lines. So here I have something that Rickover says. So Rickover noted that, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm putting in my own words. I'm not using his words and then changing ands or alsos and buts. I'm not changing just a few words. I'm literally rephrasing it, or I'm putting it in my word because in my own words because it supports something that I can say it constructively and I can say it in a good way, and I don't need to use a direct quote. Earlier I talked about, so this was a 12-word quote, right? And I highlight that, and I can look at my lower left-hand side, and it'll tell me that it's 12 words that I'm actually quoting. But let's say I had this, let's say I had a quote that's a lot longer. Here's a quote that when I highlight is 86 words. I would never ever expect to see this in a paper. I have, however, and every once in a while you run into a case where it's acceptable. However, I'm going to tell you the rule just because I do not want to see consecutive quotes that are less than 40 words that are being done consecutively just so we don't have to do a block quotation. That would be a workaround. That would be unacceptable. But just in the event that you absolutely have to use a 40-plus word quote, here's how you do it. You start off with Rickover 2018. So the author, the year, noted that, or something along the lines of stated that, conveyed. And then you put in a colon, and then you put in your 40-plus word citation. Unlike what you saw up here with direct quotes, the punctuation mark goes at the very end. You also don't have any quotation marks. No quotation marks here. And the page number is still required, except it's going to go after the fact. So when we come up here to this first sentence for Smith and Doe, notice that the punctuation was after. In this block quote, the punctuation is before. So just a subtle difference. Again, I would hope I would never see that, but if I do, that's how that's done. Now, what I would rather see is this, where I have a statement or an assertion, and then I have the authors that I attribute to that have allowed me to make that assertion. What this tells me is that I've taken multiple sources, and in my own words, I have put together a synthesis or an idea or an assertion. I've written it down, and here are the sources that support what I'm saying. So this is what I would rather see, even if it's just one author or two authors, three authors, whatever the case may be. So in this instance, this tells me that this assertion is supported by Rickover 2018 and by the work of Smith and Doe 2018. Notice that they're both within the same parentheses. They're also, so you have Rickover, comma 2018, you have a semicolon, and then the next set of authors, Smith and Doe 2018, close parentheses, and then you have your period. So this would be very, very good to see, and to see several of these throughout. Again, that would be that would tell me a lot about what's going on and how much effort you put into the work. Notice here that you have this ampersand inside these parentheses. You use the ampersand. You don't use and. I also don't have any first and middle initials inside these parentheses. We don't use those when you get into in-text citations. If I was going to attribute something to Smith and Doe outside of this particular method, I would actually say Smith and Doe and actually type out the word and. I would still put in the year, but the year would go in parentheses, noted X, Y, Z, something along those lines, and then period. And that there again, it's properly attributing, the work from Smith and Doe in 2018, some type of statement or some type of assertion that needs inclusion in my paper. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go over those basic rules. If you follow these rules, I think you'll be okay. Journal articles, like I said, are preferred. You can tell the books if the titles, usually for the books when you're looking at APA, the titles will be italicized, whereas the journal articles, it's the journal name that's italicized. So that completes the fourth and final installment of APA formatting, of the 4-part series for an APA formatting in Microsoft Word. I've put this together because I think it'll help. Just to give you an idea, this is being recorded on February 18th on Sunday. And I think it may be useful to some of the students in my current class. If it is, and the comments below are open, please feel free to let me know. Or if you feel that perhaps additional videos are needed, or if you have something that you would like to learn more about and you think I can help, by all means, let me know. If the comments section isn't open below, the best way to get a hold of me in every instance is through the actual course itself. And if you're one of my students, then you know how to do that. And you're also aware of my office hours and how to contact me there as well. So again, I hope this has helped. And I appreciate you taking the time to take a look at this, and I look forward to reading what you have found out within your research. Thank you, and have a good day.